Hi guys, 205 Outdoors and 205 Outdoors Podcast. I'm Freddie Dillard. So tonight we're making one of my favorite recipes. It's gonna make fried okra. Now in the past, well, let me back up. Growing up, we used to have all these gardens at my mom and dad's house, and we always had fresh okra, and mom would make it, and it was always, we always enjoyed it. I mean, weekly. And then as I got older, we would go eat at places and they would serve fried okra, and I didn't really care for it as much. It looked different, it tasted different, and I just didn't really care for it. And so I asked my mom, I was like, what do you do differently with your okra versus seems like everybody else that we've tried? And I've got her recipe, which is incredibly simple. It's just really, really good. So today the farmer's market was closed, so I ended up, we don't have a garden, of course, where we live now. I went to Publix and I just got, fresh okra. She also uses frozen okra at times. You just don't want it to be breaded. So frozen chopped up okra that's not breaded works fine with this recipe. I just picked up the regular stuff, I'll chop it myself. The key ingredient, green tomatoes. She puts chopped up green tomatoes in hers, and it makes such a difference. Also, you can see this, Crisco. So not olive oil, although she says she uses olive oil occasionally, I've never seen her use it personally. And so I've only seen her use Crisco for it. Other than that, we've got cornmeal, just regular self-rising cornmeal. So there's no flour in this recipe. That separates it from most other ones, because most other people bread each individual piece of okra with flour, and that's how they fry it up from there. This will be completely different than that. And just a little bit of salt and pepper just for seasoning. I'll season my okra once it's chopped up, okra and tomatoes, and then I'll also season my cornmeal as well. She normally uses a iron skillet. This is not an iron skillet. It's just a hex clad regular skillet that I use. I'm going to try it. If it doesn't work well, you'll probably never see this video, but I do have an iron skillet, but I'm using it to cook something else tonight. We're also having kraut and Connecticut sausage, and I like to cook that in the iron skillet as well. So we're gonna use the hex clad for the okra and the iron skillet for the other tonight. So let's get to it. I don't know if it's a requirement, but I went ahead and I'm soaking this okra for probably about 10 minutes, and then I'll rinse it. I'll use a little colander basket, little strainer, and rinse it out real good. But we'll do that before we actually start cutting, preparing, and everything else. I just like to make sure it's good and clean before I use it. Okay guys, so I've got my okra has been washed, rinsed, and then I also took some paper towels and dried it off as much as I could. You don't want just soaking wet okra when you put this with your meal and everything else. It's just gonna make everything kind of soggy. So try to dry it off as much as you can. Pat it dry at least. My green tomatoes, I peeled them. You see there's a little bit of red showing on this one. These came from Publix, so you can get a good farmer's market, or if you have some in your backyard, it's just really green. That's probably even better, but these will work for tonight. I'm using 2 of them. You could, if you only have 1, use 1. If you got 3, hey, that's even better probably. But 2 seem good with this amount of okra. All right, so let's get started. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna move things around just a little, is these okra, if you look at them, they've got this little end right here where it connects to the stem. I'm just gonna cut that off. And just a cutting tip when you're cutting stuff like this, so you don't end up with a finger on your cutting board. If you'll take your fingers and sort of just roll them back just a little bit and use this knuckle to kind of guide your knife. See what I'm doing? It'll keep you from chopping a finger off. See that? Oh, well, I'll get that in a second. And then this end right here, I usually will go back until it's a decent diameter, and just, there we go. So now we have that on both ends, and we're just going to cut them into roughly equal widths. And just like I said, use your finger as a guide there. Not a competition, so they don't have to be exactly perfect, but they will cook better, you know, as close to the same size as possible. Will help them cook just a little more evenly. Last one. There we go. So this is about the size that we've got. I'm just going to put them in my little bowl over there, and I'm going to do the rest of this basket, but I'm going to save you from having to watch all of that because it's going to take me a few minutes. So I will be back in a few. Okay, so a few minutes later, I've got all of our okra chopped, and yeah, roughly this pretty close to the same size. Most of them are pretty even. That just helps them cook more evenly. They're going to be breaded and fried. So next we're going to get our 2 tomatoes. Now these are not sliced, these are actually just going to be chopped. So I've got them peeled. Real important, you know, I always peel these. And I don't know if you can see it, but these have a little bit of red coming in, so we may not be able to use all that. I don't know. It just doesn't have the same texture. But hopefully next time I make this, or if you make it at home, you can actually get actual green tomatoes. Our farmer's market was just closed today, and I didn't have access to anything, so we went to Publix and we got what we got. These were the best ones, so that's what we're gonna do. So cut through those, and you see a little red in there. I think we'll be okay though. With this, we'll be okay. Now if I was making fried green tomatoes, that'd absolutely be a no. But I was gonna cut them up. And again, it doesn't have to be. This does not have to be the perfect thing, but we'll just get them. Oops. Got a little more red than I like, but I think we'll be okay. Put that to the side, and that cut through there, and then we're just going to cut them through. Yeah, these are definitely not the best ones for this, but you'll get the idea. And last but not least, cut that way. Oops, that way. Slice it relatively in little chunks there, and we'll get that in there. So ideally, these would have been, you know, just a little less right, but that's what we got. I'm going to chop the other one up now. All right, guys, I'm just going to salt this just a little bit. Sprinkle some salt over the actual okra and tomatoes. Then I'm also just going to put a little salt into my cornmeal. Get it in there. And do the same with pepper. We're going for, I know I'm tapping this several times, but it's probably a little over, maybe a teaspoon, half a teaspoon to a teaspoon. It just looks like a lot on it right now because I haven't mixed it. So we're just going to mix that in real well. And do the same over here. I'm just going to use my hands. They're washed 1,000 times today. I'm just going to mix that in real good, and that gives us a chance to incorporate those tomatoes. Semi-green tomatoes with this okra here. Let's get everything mixed in real well. So you always season your vegetables and your, in this case, cornmeal, flour if I'm cooking something that requires that. All right. Okay, so we got our cornmeal ready. And we have our tomatoes, green tomatoes, and okra ready. So we're just going to start pouring this in. Don't go too crazy with that meal. We're going to get it mixed, and we want to have them well coated, but we don't want to. Of course, this won't be enough right here. I'm going to add to this, but We don't want to go too crazy. You can always add a little bit more as you need it. We just want we want this stuff to be well coated. Coat that a little bit more. We may end up using all this, and that's, I'm guessing I maybe put 2 cups of flour in there, or 2 cups of cornmeal, sorry. And I'm just going to keep mixing it in, coating it well. And again, this is not going to look like what you're probably used to when you think of fried okra, or fried green tomatoes for that matter. But to me, this has the, I don't know how it, I can't tell you the science behind it, but it just, normally okra has a sliminess about it when you bite into it. This, for whatever reason, kind of seems to get away from it. Gets it out of that sliminess for me. It just tastes, to me, it tastes a whole lot better, because you get a little bit of you get a crust all the way around. You get green tomatoes, you get okra in it, and I think we're ready to cook. I might just add a little bit more. I don't want to go too crazy with it, but you know, it's there. I just don't want big puddles of cornmeal laying in the bottom or anything. So as long as we're still coating, I'm okay with using it. Coating it. All right, I think we're ready. I'm just gonna wash my hands and we'll get to cooking. Okay, Crisco. I guess you could use any kind of, like, you know, shortening like this, but Crisco is that's something that I don't like to deviate from. I actually tried this recipe yesterday, and I had ran out of Crisco. Tried it with just regular vegetable oil, and it just didn't taste right. That's why I'm redoing it today. So this is one of those times where you don't want to go too heavy. You want to make this really non-stick, but you don't want to. We're not deep frying. We're pan frying. So I'm going to use, you know, a little bit right there. You can always go back and add some to this if it starts to stick to the pan or anything like that. You can always go back, but you know, you don't want to have a big puddle of grease just everywhere. So we want to cook it, but we're not deep frying. Just so you never, you don't want to have to mess this up. Always let your oil, when you make sure you're coating the bottom of the pan. You say we're not deep frying this, but we are frying it. So I may get a little bit more because I'm not coating the entire bottom of the pan yet. So I'm just gonna add a little bit to it, just so we don't end up in a mess. You can always add more. So I started out with about 1.5 tablespoons. Now I'm letting this melt completely, and I want it to have a little bit of a smoke to it to make sure that it's hot enough before I put any okra on this. If you put okra on cold oil, it's just going to make it soggy. You're not going to have crispy. It's not going to be good. So let your oil start to smoke a little bit. When it does, I'm on high heat right now. I'm probably going to turn my heat down just a little bit, maybe to 9 or 8.5, medium high. So we're there. We have smoke. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my fan, so that'll be a little bit of a disturbance. I apologize. Tell you what, we'll turn it on in a second when we need it. So we're just going to start putting our okra in. Let's see, okra and green tomatoes. This is, like I said, this is a completely different way than you've probably ever seen it, because most people don't cook it this way. I promise you, this is good. So we're gonna make sure it cooks really good on one side. And again, this will be the first time I ever tried this in the hex clad. We normally do this in an iron skillet. Mom's probably gonna get after me for this, but I think this will still turn out. And a lot of people aren't comfortable with iron skillets, so I think this may be better for this application. Now the hoe cake I made this morning, you need an iron skillet. No way around it. Same thing with cornbread. I only use iron skillet for those. So So we're just letting that cook really good. So this is gonna have a good crust on before you flip it. You know, you're gonna have a really good crust on here. Not burnt, but a good crust. So this will be one of those times that I don't actually, I hate to have just a really long video, but I think a lot of people, they get to this step and they may have a lot of questions. When do I turn it? What does it look like after I turn it? And I don't want to skip this part. So let's just start now. We'll turn a little bit and see what we got. Starting to cook, yeah. You can see it. Get that back in there. Like I said, as far as the vegetable, the Crisco, sorry, the oil, as far as that stuff goes, you can always add more. So if this starts to stick on me or anything like that, no problem. We'll just add a little bit more in there. But if you start off with too much, you're kind of messed up there. I'm going to start to add a little bit in there now. Oops. I'm sure we're getting a little smoke, so I'm going to turn this fan on. Yeah, definitely needs more Crisco. Oh. And you'll probably use a decent amount of the stuff in here. I just don't like putting it all in at once because it soaks it up and it'll just be really, really, really oily. Just a tad. Want the pan hot, but not too hot. And let that layer cook real good, then we'll start turning it over. We may get into that point now to where I need to flip it a little more often. We're kind of getting close to being done here. So I started out on high heat. I've come down to about 8 now. Which is, right at medium high. Again, you want a hot pan. You don't want a pan that's like scorching and you're just going to burn it. You see those tomatoes kind of cooking up in there. Serve it in this dish tonight. I've got it right here close. Let it sit for a second and now we'll flip again. I made this a week or so ago, and my mom took a picture and sent it to her, and she said, "Oh no, it wasn't cooked enough." So we're gonna make sure we get it good and dark. You're taking it to the point that it's almost burnt, but not burnt, where it's really good crust on it, really well toasted. And that's the reason why I'm keeping this video going for this part, because it's almost easy to screw up. I think we're about there. You see those chunks of tomatoes fried up with that seasoned cornmeal, really good. And I think we're there. We can use that one out. And then we'll get restarted with batch number 2. Alright, so this is the final result there. Really good. Get here, you can see a little closer. It's a different way to do okra and green tomatoes. I'm going to show you the whole meal in just a second. I'm making some pasta noodles and red sauce with them, and then I'm doing Kaneka sausage and kraut as well. Dinner will be ready in just a minute. Alright guys, finally got everything done. Time to try it. Oh, it is good. That is on point. Alright, well hopefully, hope you guys try it. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching 205 Outdoors and listening to 205 Outdoors podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe.